So the summer term ended last Friday, and it's time now to look back over the first year of the life of the University of Liverpool Mathematics School. Our first week in school, the staff spent most of the first week cleaning, moving furniture, and getting sorted out to actually deliver lessons in a building that had only recently been converted for use as a maths school. The students that we welcomed to school were initially very nervous, excited about being back in school though, having been away from school since March really. Many of them had been working with me in online lessons on a daily basis through the summer term. So they already knew me quite well, but they didn't really know the other teaching staff and the admin staff. So the first week was spent getting to know everybody, so enabling the students to get to know each other, enabling the teachers and the admin staff to get to know the students, and working in small groups on a variety of different challenges and competitions and just fun activities and serious activities, a little bit of everything really. And lots of pizza and fun things like that as well. And we soon discovered that we had recruited a staff team and a bunch of students who had a huge amount in common and really enjoyed working with each other and learning together, and enjoyed that feeling of being amongst other people who had very similar aspirations and values, able to enjoy things like maths and science and chess and computer coding and many, many other things as well, including music and sport. And for that not to be spoilt in any way by students who didn't care for learning and didn't care about doing your best and meeting challenge with hard work. So to begin with, our lessons when we settled into our normal timetable were pretty traditional, because we'd had to seat the students in a gridiron pattern, all socially distanced, and we had very straightforward traditional classroom structures in the way we were sitting, and that led to quite a didactic teaching approach to begin with. But we very quickly realised that without high quality discussion going on, the students were really not going to have a good quality experience of learning in school, and we're not going to make the fantastic progress that we had our eyes set on. So before very long, we had students working together in small groups, working on whiteboards around the classroom, or working virtually on iPads and tablets, or sometimes actually as a staff team. This is one of the great things about working in a maths school, is that because all the students are doing the same subjects, we're able to make a decision as a staff team that we're going to just crash lessons tomorrow or next week and do something completely different for the day or for the afternoon. And it's really not a problem. Nobody minds, because we're building up skills and knowledge that are going to support learning and achievement in all of the subjects. So quite often we would just say, right, next week, let's do a special day on Tuesday where we focus on mathematical problem solving, or we focus on designing completely new physics experiments where the students think about an area that they want to explore and design their own experiments. And maybe they'll design those experiments and we'll buy the equipment that they need to do those experiments, and in a few weeks' time, when we've got everything together, they'll be able to actually design those experiments and actually make them work in practice. So there's a lot of that kind of freedom that we've experienced in the maths school that we always hoped we'd have, but we didn't quite know how it would work out in the end. And the fact that students have their own study spaces in school has also been really, really helpful. So we can do projects where students actually spend large parts of the day working in teams in different spaces around school, and they've got all of the space and resources that they need to do that. And as staff, we can work our way around school and support them in that. Not everything has to be done in the usual sort of 60-minute lesson format. One of the things that the Sir Alistair Pilkington building is missing is a kitchen. So when we want to eat together as a school, we don't have any catering facilities to organise that with. So we tried various different things this year. We tried ordering in pizza. So we soon decided that actually we'd be better off if we could do some self-catering. So we came up with a way of doing that involves a single sort of worktop induction hob and a massive great big pot that we use for cooking things like curry and chili and so on. And it's a lot of fun. The students help us with the cooking. Quite often we do it as a fundraising activity, so we might use quite cheap ingredients, maybe do vegetarian food, and then we can do that as a fundraiser. So we get the students to make a donation to one of the charities that we support, and we can feed everybody in school and enjoy that wonderful communal feeling of cooking together and eating together. So for me, the great highlights of this year have very often involved food. We've raised money for charity, and we've had the opportunity to sit and eat together and enjoy each other's company. Looking back over the year, it's obviously coping with COVID has been a huge issue for all schools this year. We've been really lucky. We haven't had to close school or send the students all home. Right until the very last day of term in the summer, we had one day when we had to move our teaching online. But of course, in January, all schools had to close, and at quite short notice. Fortunately, we were already well practiced at teaching online. I'd been teaching online since last March, and all the other teachers at school had been teaching online because we had a third class at school all the way through the autumn term. Where there were students who needed to self-isolate, they just stayed at home and we taught them a full timetable in class 3. So all of our teachers had chance to get used to the sort of technology of teaching online and also get used to the pedagogy of it, get used to what works and what gets students interacting and talking and thinking properly about what we're trying to teach them. So in January, when we had to move the whole school online, it wasn't a big problem, but we basically tried to replicate our timetable that we taught in school. Pretty much exactly the same thing was what we were trying to deliver online. And we discovered that there were a few issues with that, that in online learning, you actually need more breaks between lessons. It's a strange thing. You'd think it wouldn't be so much of an issue, but people do need more breaks from their screen. We also discovered that it was perfectly possible to teach all of our students in one class sometimes, but at other times we realised that we needed smaller groups so that we could get more discussion going. So rather than teach in our groups of sort of 14, 15 students, which is our normal when we're in school, we introduced some lecture sessions where we were teaching all the students at the same time. And we also introduced a lot of what we call supervision sessions when we were teaching students in groups of 5 or 6. And the point of this was to make sure that students had an opportunity to discuss ideas, to look at the work that they've been doing together, to get advice about it, to explore problem solving, to talk about scientific concepts, to have arguments with each other. And all of this is a really important part of learning mathematics, computer science and physics for us. In fact, those supervisions were so successful that when we came back to school in March, we decided we were going to retain supervisions as part of our standard timetable offer in school. Another thing that we discovered during January and February was that actually students needed time off lessons during the daylight so that they could get out and get some fresh air and exercise. So we introduced a long break in the morning and we kept our long lunch times as well, so that students had 2 good periods during the day when the sun was hopefully out, when they could get out for a walk or a run or a bike ride or whatever. And as part of that, we had them travelling to CERN and back virtually. It had always been an ambition of ours to take our students to visit the particle accelerator at CERN. And when this wasn't possible, we decided we would do the next best thing, and had a virtual challenge where together we cycled and walked and ran all the way to Cerne and back, and we discovered that that was actually quite easy. So we ended up going back to Cerne again, and back home again, and back to Cerne again. When the students returned from the long winter break, well, it wasn't really a break, to be honest, for our students. They worked just as hard during January and February as they would have done if they'd been in school. When they came back, we had our full testing set up ready for them. So one of our physics laboratories was turned into our COVID testing base. And our students, being well-trained scientists, found it pretty easy to get used to the routine of using the lateral flow devices to test themselves for COVID. And in fact, that will have played a significant role in helping to make sure that we were all really continue to have our wits about us in terms of being careful about COVID infections. I don't think we really, up until the very end of the summer term, we didn't actually have any positive cases of COVID-19 revealed by the lateral flow devices. So we really have managed to keep students and staff pretty much as safe as they could be all year, and we feel really proud of that. We're lucky that our students are very sensible and they're very cautious, and they've taken the advice and guidance that we've issued to them really seriously and helped to keep everybody else safe. So we're really grateful for that. People would be forgiven for thinking that as a school that teaches mathematics, physics and computer science, we're not really interested in literature or the arts, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, having a well-stocked school library was one of my personal priorities for the school, both in the temporary building and the permanent building that we're planning at the moment. And similarly, having a piano in school was really important to us as a staff, but we'll come on to that later. We had a room set aside as a library, and one of our early IKEA trips in September was to go and buy a whole load of Billy bookcases to equip our library. And so Colin and the team very quickly had all of those bookcases built and set up, and we have a lovely library set up now in the Sir Alistair Pilkington building. Initially we had very few books because we basically had a load of books that I brought from home and from my previous job. So we had lots of maths and science books and basically my spare novels and books about the history of maths and philosophy and science and things like that. So that was a start, and we started to buy books as well, and that's a lot of fun, figuring out which books you want to put in your library, and we've got plenty of money to pay for those things, but actually it takes quite a long time to accumulate a really good school library, so that's not a small process. We also had some generous donations. Colin, our head of maths, put an advert out on Facebook to invite donations, and we received some really great donations from people. We had a really generous donation of science fiction books from John O'Donnell, which was a lifetime's collection from her late husband, John O'Donnell. And we're really excited about these books because many of our students are very keen on science fiction, and there are some really fantastic titles in this collection of sort of 900 plus books, so it's made a fantastic addition to our library. And Dave's done a vlog all about the gift of John O'Donnell's books, so you can find a link to that in the description below. The staff at the maths school have had to improvise all sorts of clever solutions to different problems over the course of this year. Some of them mathematical problems, but most of them, if we're honest, something to do with COVID-19. So one of those problems was what to do on Friday afternoons when we couldn't get access to the university sports facilities. So our normal weekly routine is to end the day on Friday with a really fun session, getting some exercise and having a bit of fun together as a school at Sport Liverpool, the university sports centre. But During the winter lockdown, the sports centre had to close, so we were no longer able to go along and play volleyball or badminton or anything like that. So we had to come up with something that we could do within the Sir Alistair Pilkington building. And we quite often like to do brain sports like chess or board games or play bridge and things like that. But we thought we'd come up with something different. And this was Colin's genius idea, was to introduce Stemmaster to school. And his version of Taskmaster involved the students doing a variety of silly and serious tasks related to mathematics and science. And so some of them involved relatively sensible things like creating a magic square where the competition was to use the cleverest numbers you could think of. So that gave students lots of scope for imagination, as well as solving the problem of how you create a magic square. But then it did get as silly as give assistant head teacher Dave a fright and video while you're doing it. Poor old Dave didn't realise for about 3 or 4 days into next week that the students had already started to do this. But he worked it out eventually. And we got some brilliant video footage, so that kept us all nicely amused in the winter when we really needed something to put a smile on our faces. One of the things that I did during the setup year for the school was to meet with the University of Liverpool Music Department to find out how we could collaborate with them and enable our students to access all the fantastic things that they do, including performances and peripatetic music teachers. But also we thought that we should have something to offer back to the music department, because they're our very near neighbours on the campus. One of the first things that we did in school when we started in September was to buy a piano for the students and staff to use in school. Because we know from the experience of Exeter Math School and King's College London Math School that many of the students are very keen on music in math schools, and there are often some excellent pianists in the math school student bodies. So I sent Niall Thompson, head of AMP, off to the piano shop, and he came back with a beautiful Kawai Baby Grand. It's second-hand, it's nearly as old as me, but it's a lovely piano. It's got an excellent tone, and the students have really enjoyed playing that this year. And when we can persuade Niall to play, that's really nice as well, because he's a very good pianist. And once COVID is less of a risk, we're hoping that we can allow University of Liverpool musicians to come in and use our piano for practice as well, so that we have something to give back to the music department. We had great plans this year for all of the educational visits that we were going to do with students. So I'm very keen on hill walking and climbing and sailing, and I'd love to get our students up in the hills. And we will be doing that. We're now an accredited Duke of Edinburgh centre, so we will be running our own Duke of Edinburgh scheme next year. Dave is very keen on Iron Bridge and Bliss Hill, so he's very keen to get the students down to see the history of engineering and the Industrial Revolution at Iron Bridge. And we had a coach booked, and we were all ready to go and visit Iron Bridge in late June, but unfortunately, because of the rise in the Delta variant, we had to postpone that one, so that still hasn't happened. What we did manage to do was our sponsored walk around Liverpool, and this was wonderful because we'd been conscious for a long time about how many amazing museums and pieces of architecture and opportunities for students to be immersed in the high culture of Liverpool. We're just surrounded by many fantastic places. Now, it's not easy to arrange visits to these things during these COVID times, but Dave did a great job and managed to secure visits for us to the Walker Art Gallery and the World Museum in the centre of Liverpool. And we had a really nice walk around Liverpool, visiting the cathedrals and noticing the fantastic architecture and many of the wonderful things that Liverpool has to offer. And it's just so nice to go for a walk with the students, because there's something about walking that makes chatting easy and gets people thinking. So we had a really nice sociable day in the open air, getting fresh air and exercise, but also really appreciating our surroundings and loving being part of the city of Liverpool. Being a math school, we attract students who really love doing mathematics and physics and computer science. And some of those students are really confident and articulate and read a lot and enjoy writing and enjoy expressing themselves. Some of them are not like that. Some of them more fit the stereotype of the quiet mathematician that's not very confident, maybe always in expressing herself or himself. And so we always knew that we were going to have to do something to enable math school students to experience working as part of a team and presenting confidently about things that they had found out in their research, or arguing confidently so that they could argue for a particular position in a debate. And that's something that we've pushed hard through the year with the students. We've tried to make sure that they have as many opportunities as possible to learn how to work as part of a team, to get feedback on that, to feel confident about the contributions they can make in all sorts of different ways to the life of the school, and to difficult things like designing a physics experiment or solving a difficult mathematical problem. And one of the things that, and I'm as guilty of this as many other mathematicians, I think, that if somebody gives me an interesting puzzle or problem to work on, really, I just want 10 minutes to have a good look at it and think about it. But actually, what we need to learn as mathematicians and scientists is the art of collaborating effectively with each other. So we do that in a variety of different ways. It might be getting students to do fun things like Taskmaster. It might be as part of debate clubs. So once a week, the students are encouraged to spend lunchtime doing formal school debating. And we have a debating coach who comes into school to help them learn how to do that. And it might just be as simple as giving students a bit of coaching on how to present more effectively when they're presenting their research findings, or encouraging students to feel more confident socially and talking to them in our one-to-one tutorial sessions about how they can become more socially confident and feel more happy about being part of a group and not needing to shy away and be that stereotypical quiet mathematician all of the time. We've worked hard with our students to get them to come out of their shells and express themselves more, and we can really see the difference in quite a few individuals who were very, very quiet and are now much more confident and outgoing. One of the great things about being a specialist sixth form is that it's really easy to provide students with high quality careers advice and inspiration about their careers in STEM, because we can bring speakers in from our university or from other universities or from industry who will be able to speak to students about exactly the things that they're interested in and talk to them about exactly the sorts of careers that they're likely to be considering. So we've had a whole series of really fantastic speakers visit school this year, either visiting via Zoom or visiting in person, depending on what was possible and what was most practical at the time. Some of those visitors have actually been quite young. So Jess Ingray, who was a first year student at University of Cambridge, and Alice Haigh, who was a third year student at University of Cambridge. Jess was studying mathematics, Alice studying engineering. By the way, the name is no coincidence. Alice is actually my daughter, but she came to speak to students about engineering, and it was, a really useful input so that they could hear from people who were really peers of theirs about what life at university is like. So many thanks to Jess and Alice for those talks. We also had the brilliant Dr. Mick Storr of CERN, who visited us via Zoom to tell the students about the physics and other research that goes on at CERN. And also on Zoom, we had Dr. Andrew Abercrombie from NASA, which was pretty incredible, really, to think that, we had speakers from places like CERN and NASA at our little school in Liverpool. It was really fantastic. Then we had brain-inspired computing talk from Dr. Stephen Lynch of Manchester Metropolitan University. That was brilliant and really inspired some of our students to find out more about that area of research. Professor Carsten Welsh, Head of Physics at the University of Liverpool, spoke to our students about the physics of Hollywood, which sounds like it should be quite a lightweight, easy kind of talk to enjoy, but it very quickly got into some very deep and challenging physics. So it was really appropriately challenging for our talented students and really enjoyable. We also heard from Dr. Ed Hardy about dark matter. Ed Hardy's another research scientist at the University of Liverpool. Dr. Richard Hadji, who works for BAE Systems, came to talk to students about knot theory, but also did a really useful talk about his career so far and how being brilliant at mathematical thinking is something that if you cultivate that, then it can give you a really flexible and interesting career where you can use your skills in many, many different ways. Professor Richard Home spoke to students about geophysics. Richard Home also from University of Liverpool. We had Catherine Malcolm visit from AstraZeneca to talk about engineering careers. Professor John Wheeler from University of Liverpool talking about mathematics as part of geology. And most recently, Dr. Steve Garnett, who's had the most incredible career as a software entrepreneur, most recently a software engineer at the start of his career. And having started from a poor area of Liverpool, having reached the heights of the biggest software and IT firms in the world, that was really quite awe-inspiring. So our students got a great deal out of that. We were very fortunate this year that Dr. Stuart Haslinger, who's a member of the University of Liverpool mathematics team, came along to us via Zoom to challenge our students to a game of chess. We put forward Louis, who's our most capable chess player, and everybody else in school was really looking forward to seeing Louis well and truly beaten, because he's beaten all of us at chess over the course of the year. But actually, Louis put up a really strong fight against a chess grandmaster, and it was a really interesting game. And at the end of the game, when Stuart had finally prevailed, he went back over the game move by move with Louis and analysed every position. And those of us who are not chess experts were really impressed by the way that both of them could remember every move of the game. But I think if you are a real chess aficionado, that's quite easy to do, because it means so much more to you than it does to us mere mortals. But yeah, that was a really exciting moment in the year. Fantastic. One of the great pleasures about working at the math school is the fantastic response that we get from students, and the way that students respond to our teaching means that the teachers raise their game, and the teachers come to work really looking forward to teaching and feeling energized because they know they're going to get so much back from the students. The students work really hard. Some of the students, when they came to us, were not really well practiced about maximising their performance, so they needed quite a lot of one-to-one guidance about how to manage things like note-taking, how to manage homework deadlines, how to ensure they got the most out of doing homework without having to spend too much time going over every single thing, where to focus their attention and how to deal with it when they didn't get everything right. And so we got the students through to their December exams, and we purposefully made those examinations quite formal and intentionally tries to raise the level of stress a little bit with students, because we want to make sure that when they get through to their final exams at the end of year 13, they're used to dealing with the stress that inevitably comes with terminal examinations in a very important course like an A-level course. And the students got really pretty good exam results in December. We had lots of A's and A stars, and that really is a testament to the hard work that students have put in and the great teaching that they'd had. What we did after the examinations was we sat down individually with every one of the students. So they had a one-to-one conversation for mathematics, another one-to-one conversation for computer science, and another one for physics, to make sure that they'd learned as much as possible from the process of taking the examination and looking at the paper after it had been marked, and then that they'd come up with a program for what they were going to do next to address any gaps in their understanding and their knowledge, and make sure that they could perform even more highly next time. That was a really effective process. It made sure that there was a proper feedback conversation going on, not just do the exam, get it marked, get a grade, feel happy or sad, and then walk away and don't think about it again. It's very much in the process of what we do that we make sure that there's an ongoing conversation, there's reflection on how the assessment went and what it told us about our learning and what we then need to do to maximise our learning in the future. We did the same thing after the summer exams, so the students got, again, a largely fantastic set of results. A really important part of our work as a maths school is the outreach programme that we deliver. Last year, the outreach programme consisted of sessions at the university in the evenings that students came along to, and then in March it moved to an online model where I was teaching hundreds of students actually every day, right the way from April through to July. And for me, actually, that was a really enjoyable part of last summer's lockdown period. The feedback that we get from students about this is just wonderful. We try to learn as much as we can from student feedback and adjust what we're offering so that it's giving them exactly what they need. And I'll read out some quotes from students. The courses have made me much more confident about doing maths as I've discovered through them that I'm better at it than I thought. I'm also finding it much easier to understand topics that I've covered before and learned a lot of new and interesting things along the way. And in physics, one student commented, "Personally, I've found that these sessions have heightened my love for the subject and consolidated my intention to go into a career involving physics." And we've also been able to give students more confidence in coding through Steve's computer science course, and we've supported Year 12 students with university applications and Year 13 students preparing for things like the physics admissions test and STEP exams. I know in the Monday night problem solving course that I run, there's been something like 1,800 hours of student learning in that course this year, if you add together all of the attendances of students over the course of the year. So that's a really satisfying feeling that we've been able to give students an opportunity to get involved in really tricky mathematical problem solving that there often isn't enough time for at school. So looking back over the course of the year, the delivery of the outreach programme has been a big highlight for us. So it's been a really nice part of the end of this year that quite a lot of students and parents have written to me to tell me how the year's gone from their point of view. And here's one email that's fairly typical of some of the messages that we've had. "Hi Damian. Would just like to express my thanks to you and all of the staff for the fantastic school you're running. Our daughter's so happy there and has excelled far more than we as parents could imagine. I must admit that we were nervous when our daughter made the choice to go to Old Mass, as it was something so new and pioneering. We need not have worried at all. The whole team have really driven all the students to achieve some incredible things, and we're very proud of what you've done. Thank you so much. We hope you all have a fantastic summer." And that's just so good to hear, because as a staff team, we have worked hard this year. I mean, I think every staff team in every school has worked incredibly hard this year. But for us, it's been a huge adventure to set up a new school. And like all adventures, it's exciting because you don't quite know how it's going to turn out. I knew it was going to be something special. I knew that for students like the one that email was about, that it would work. I was never in any doubt about that. But the scale of the success, the way that it's driven on students from all sorts of different backgrounds, some students who were already extremely confident about their maths and science, other students who were nowhere near as confident, but that experience of being taught completely immersed in mathematics and science for a year and being taught alongside really ambitious and talented students has driven everybody onwards, and it's been very demanding, but it's been very rewarding. And as staff, we feel really, I think, deeply satisfied with what the school has achieved so far, but also we're still very hungry for the successes that we're going to have in the future. So we're really looking forward to the new cohort of students that's joining us this September. We know that there are some incredibly talented students joining us in that cohort, and some extremely ambitious students as well. We're really pleased that we've managed to find students from all over Liverpool and the Merseyside region, and there've been even students who've come a very great distance so that they can join our school as well, which is a huge compliment to us. We're really delighted about that. Our ambition for the future is to create more opportunities for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. We've got a number of students who come to us having faced quite a lot of challenge so far in their lives, and we feel particularly motivated to help those students and find ways to help them succeed even more in the future. And we want to work with more schools around Liverpool to find more students like that who could really benefit from what we offer. We're also really excited about moving into our permanent building, and that's going to happen in about a year and a half's time. So there's still a lot of work to do in finishing off just designing the details of that building and getting construction underway. We're looking forward to 3 new staff members joining us in September, some fantastic mathematicians, really talented special people, and also a new administrator joining the team who's going to be a lot of fun and really help make things work for us as a school. So yeah, it's been a tiring year, but it's been a deeply satisfying year, and whereas normally at this stage in the year as a teacher I'm just looking forward to a few weeks off where I can forget about school, actually this summer is full of planning for next year and looking forward to getting back to school again in September.